Ladies and gentlemen, when you're finally fed up, when you've had enough of being overlooked, disrespected, or underappreciated, silence becomes the most powerful tool you can use. People often think that speaking up or confronting someone is the way to fix things. But let me tell you something. The power of silence is unmatched. It speaks volumes without you saying a single word. It's louder than any argument, stronger than any confrontation. When you stop speaking, when you stop chasing, when you stop explaining yourself, that's when the truth truly sinks in. And believe me, that's when they start feeling the weight of your absence. Most people don't realize what they have until it's no longer around. That's how we are as humans. We take things for granted, assuming that everything will always stay the same. But let me tell you something. Once you walk away, that's when the regret hits. That's when the realization sets in. When you stop talking, when you stop reaching out, when you stop being the one who always picks up the pieces, the silence will hit them like a punch to the gut. It's the quiet that makes them realize just how much they depended on you, just how much they needed you. You don't have to say anything for them to understand that they've lost something real. The absence of your energy, your love, your presence, it creates a void. And that void is louder than any noise, louder than any words. They'll start to feel it in every aspect of their life. The moments when they reach for their phone to call you and there's nothing but emptiness on the other end. The moments when they need someone to talk to and you're no longer there. That's when the silence starts to speak, and it speaks in a language they can't ignore. And it's in that silence that they finally realize that the love, the attention, the support they took for granted is gone. The truth is, when you walk away, you're teaching them a lesson they could never have learned if you kept trying to make things work. The more you chase, the more you fight for something that doesn't deserve your energy, the more you lose yourself. But when you stop, when you let the silence take over, they're forced to face the consequences of their actions. They're forced to realize what they've lost. And it's in that moment that they finally understand the value of what they had, even if they never showed it before. But here's the catch. Silence isn't about being petty or trying to make them regret their actions. No, silence is about reclaiming your power. It's about showing them that you're not going to keep bending over backwards for someone who doesn't appreciate you. It's about showing yourself the respect you deserve. And trust me, when they feel that silence, when they feel the weight of your absence, they'll start to think long and hard about how they treated you. It won't be the words you said or the arguments you had that stick with them. It will be the fact that you walked away, that you decided to stop giving them a piece of your soul. Men especially tend to not fully grasp the value of a woman until she's no longer there. They'll take her love for granted, assuming she'll always be there, always be available. But the moment she steps back, the moment she stops trying, that's when the realization hits. And it hits hard. They'll wonder what went wrong, why you're no longer fighting for them, why they don't feel your presence in their life anymore, why they don't feel your presence in their life anymore. And the truth is, they'll never truly understand the depth of their loss until it's too late. But here's where the power of silence truly comes in. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to fight for someone who isn't fighting for you. Your silence becomes the loudest statement you could ever make. It becomes the message that you are no longer willing to settle for anything less than what you deserve. And that silence, that absence, is a reminder that you're not waiting around for them to come to their senses. You've already made the choice to let go, to walk away, and to reclaim your own peace. And when they finally realize what they've lost, when they finally understand the magnitude of their mistakes, it will be your silence that echoes in their mind. They'll think back to all the moments they ignored you, took you for granted, and pushed you away. They'll replay every word, every action, and wonder where things went wrong. And in that moment, they'll realize that the one thing they always had but never truly appreciated was you. The power of silence isn't about being cruel, it's about self-respect. It's about realizing that you deserve someone who recognizes your worth every single day. You don't need to force someone to appreciate you. You don't need to beg for love. You don't need to convince anyone of your value. When you stop trying, when you let the silence speak for you, they'll hear it loud and clear. And by the time they realize what they had, you'll already be long gone, moving on and building a life that doesn't revolve around them. Because the truth is, once you've shown your worth, once you've walked away, they'll never forget the silence that followed. And that's when they'll truly understand the greatest loss was not just you walking away, but the silence that came after. You might not believe it now, but here's the painful truth. Men rarely appreciate what they have until it's gone. Think about it. They'll push you away, take you for granted, and convince themselves that there's always time. They'll keep you around because they assume you'll always be there. But here's the kicker. The moment you walk away, that's when the realization hits him like a ton of bricks. It's the silence, the void, the absence of your presence that speaks louder than any word you could have said. When you stop being the one who answers the phone, the one who makes excuses for his behavior, the one who patiently waits, something changes. You're no longer there to pick up the pieces, no longer there to fill the gaps in his life. And when you're gone, trust me, he'll feel it. The truth is, you can't make a man understand his worth until you've made the hardest decision of all, to walk away. It's in that moment of silence, in that moment of no contact, that he'll realize the value you brought into his life, the absence of your energy, your love, your care. It's like a wound that doesn't stop bleeding. That's when regret sets in. And that's when he understands the price of taking you for granted. Now, let's be clear. It's not that men are intentionally blind to your worth. It's that we're not built to truly see it until it's too late. Men live in the moment, always thinking there's time, always thinking the chase will never end. But when you're no longer there to be the one who listens, who encourages, who loves, that's when the weight of your absence crashes into him. You've taken yourself out of the equation, and all of a sudden he's left with the realization that what he had was something rare, something irreplaceable. And here's the truth. Men don't truly learn until they lose. It's a cold reality, but it's real. You can give him all the signs, all the hints, but he won't see it until he has to face the emptiness without you. And when that happens, it will hit harder than any breakup conversation, harder than any warning you've ever given. He'll feel it deep in his gut. He'll feel it in his soul. That emptiness, that sense of loss, will force him to look at his own behavior. And that's when the regret begins. But the real question is, will it be too late? When you make the decision to walk away, you're taking back your power. You're reclaiming your self-worth. And in that action, you force him to see you in a way he never did before. It's not about playing games or trying to manipulate him. It's about making him realize that your love, your respect, your time, they're not guarantees. You're not going to keep sticking around waiting for him to get it. And once you're gone, that lesson is one he'll carry with him for the rest of his life. The hardest thing for a man to face is the realization that he lost someone who was real, someone who was willing to give him their all, but was never given the same in return. But here's the painful truth. Even when a man realizes what he lost, it doesn't mean he'll know how to fix it. He might feel the weight of the loss. He might wish he could turn back time, but actions speak louder than words. If he's wise, if he's grown from the experience, he'll change. He'll make sure to never take you for granted again. But if he hasn't learned the lesson, then he's lost you for good. And that's the hardest part of this entire equation. The choice, once you've walked away, is out of his hands. If he's willing to change, if he's truly sorry for the way he treated you, then maybe, just maybe, he'll come back to you. But that change needs to be real. It can't be superficial. It can't be based on pride or ego. It has to come from a place of true understanding, of true growth. The lesson here is this: your worth is non-negotiable. You are not someone who should be treated as an afterthought, as someone who can be taken for granted. You don't need to chase him down, to beg for his attention, or to keep giving him the benefit of the doubt. Your silence, your absence, will be the loudest statement you can make. And when he realizes that, when he feels the loss of you in his life, that's when he'll start to understand just how valuable you truly are. But by then, you may already have moved on. And that's the beauty of walking away. You don't need to stay in a situation where your worth isn't recognized. You don't need to settle for anything less than the respect and love you deserve. So remember this: when you leave, when you step away from the chaos, the uncertainty, and the emotional turmoil, you're sending a message louder than any words could ever speak. You're showing him the price of his mistakes. And while he may feel the loss deeply, it's a lesson he'll carry with him forever. And you'll continue to move forward, knowing your worth and never settling for less than you. There's an undeniable power in walking away, an unspoken strength that often goes unnoticed until it's too late. Walking away doesn't mean weakness. It means you've recognized your worth. You realize that your peace, your happiness, and your value are far more important than any situation, relationship, or person who doesn't respect that. Too often, people think that walking away is a form of defeat. They believe that it's the end of the story, the final chapter in a narrative they thought would have a different outcome. But what they fail to understand is that walking away is not about giving up. It's about reclaiming your power. When you walk away from a situation that no longer serves you, you are giving yourself the opportunity to heal, to grow, and to rediscover your own worth. You're not losing anything, you're gaining everything. You're gaining control over your life, your emotions, and your future. Walking away is not just a physical action, it's a mental and emotional breakthrough. It's the moment you take back the reins of your life and decide that you are worth more than settling for less than you deserve. The courage to walk away is often misunderstood. It's easy to stay, to fight for something that may not be worth fighting for because it feels safer. But staying in a situation that drains you, that constantly puts you in a place of compromise, only diminishes your spirit. The moment you decide to walk away, you're telling yourself that your well-being is non-negotiable. You are telling yourself that your worth is not up for debate and that you are worthy of something better. It's a painful realization, especially when you've invested so much time and energy into someone or something. The thought of walking away can be overwhelming. The uncertainty of what comes next can feel paralyzing. But here's the thing. Sometimes the hardest step is the most rewarding one. You might feel scared, you might feel unsure, but in walking away, you open the door to a life filled with new possibilities, new opportunities, and most importantly, a new sense of self-respect. Walking away is the ultimate form of self-love. It's the moment you stop putting others' needs above your own. The moment you decide that you are not willing to sacrifice your happiness for anyone or anything. And here's the beauty of walking away. You don't have to explain it. You don't owe anyone an explanation for deciding that you deserve more. It's your life, your heart, and your journey. When you walk away, you're not just closing a door to a situation, you're opening a door to your own freedom. You're choosing to free yourself from the emotional burden, the constant stress, and the toxic dynamics that may have once seemed normal, but were never meant for you. Walking away is an act of reclaiming your power. It's a declaration that you will no longer accept less than you deserve, that you won't continue to settle for situations or people that deplete you. There's strength in knowing when to let go. It's a wisdom that comes from recognizing that some things are not meant to stay, that some people are not meant to be in your life forever. The real power lies in understanding that not every battle is worth fighting, and that you are allowed to choose peace over conflict. Too many times, people cling to situations out of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of being alone, fear of regret. But the real regret comes when you ignore the warning signs, when you continue to allow yourself to be mistreated or undervalued. Walking away gives you the freedom to take control of your destiny, to steer your life in the direction that aligns with your true desires and needs. It's about giving yourself permission to move forward, to evolve, and to stop being stuck in situations that are holding you back. Think about it. What would happen if you stopped settling for relationships, jobs, or situations that drain you? What would happen if you stopped forcing yourself to stay in places that make you uncomfortable or unhappy? Walking away allows you to walk toward what's meant for you. It allows you to make room for growth, for healing, for the kind of relationships, careers, and experiences that align with your highest self. It's the first step towards creating a life that feels true to who you are, not who others want you to be. Walking away isn't easy, and it's not always clear at the moment. It takes courage to recognize when something no longer serves your highest good. But once you make that decision, you'll feel a shift inside you. You'll realize that walking away was never a loss. It was a victory. It was a win for your self-worth, your peace, and your future. And here's the truth. Once you start walking away from things that no longer serve you, you'll find that the universe has a way of bringing in what you truly deserve. The right people, the right opportunities, and the right circumstances will begin to appear, all because you made the bold decision to let go of what wasn't meant for you. The journey of walking away is ultimately a journey toward empowerment. It's about finding the strength to say no, to walk away, and to trust that what's meant for you will find its way to you. There's so much power in walking away, so much freedom in letting go. When you make that choice, you are telling the world that you value yourself, that you know your worth, and that you will never settle for less than you deserve. And in that choice, you'll find not only freedom, but the true empowerment that comes from choosing yourself first. It's a harsh reality to face, but sometimes, no matter how much you wish things could go back to how they were, there is no coming back without change. We often find ourselves hoping, praying even, for a return to the past, a chance to undo the mistakes, and a way to make everything right again. But deep down, we know that things can't simply go back to the way they were. True growth, real healing, and lasting change only happen when we recognize that there is no way forward without transformation. When a relationship, whether it's romantic, familial, or even a friendship, has been damaged, it can feel like a dream to think things will return to normal. You might wish to erase the pain, the mistakes, the misunderstandings, but the truth is, without a fundamental change, you can't go back. You can't return to the version of the relationship that existed before everything fell apart. Something broke, something shifted, and that can never be undone unless both parties are willing to embrace change. True, deep, and lasting change. Change isn't always easy. In fact, it's often the hardest thing we have to face. It requires us to look at ourselves honestly, to confront our flaws, and to take responsibility for the parts of the relationship we've neglected. It demands vulnerability and courage, to admit that we weren't perfect, to acknowledge our mistakes, and to make the necessary adjustments to grow. Without this, there is no coming back. Without this willingness to change, both in actions and in mindset, there can be no healing, no reconciliation, and no rebuilding. Too often we try to bypass change, hoping that time will heal wounds. We hope that with a little more space, with a few kind words, everything will magically be better. But deep down, we know that time alone doesn't heal all wounds. Time might dull the pain, but it doesn't fix the underlying issues. Time might make things feel less raw, But unless there is a genuine desire to change, to transform the way we think and behave, the relationship will remain fractured. It will never be whole again unless both people are ready to show up differently. You may have forgiven, you may have moved on from the hurt, but the truth is, without change, the same problems will always resurface, the same patterns will repeat, and the same mistakes will be made. Without change, there is no growth. Without growth, there is no moving forward. The past might hold beautiful memories, but those memories are tainted by what happened. The only way to rebuild is to let go of what was and embrace the new version of the relationship, the new dynamic that only comes when both people evolve. If that change doesn't happen, if one or both individuals remain stuck in their old ways, it will always feel like something is missing. And it's not just in relationships. This truth applies to every aspect of life. Whether it's your career, your personal growth, or your mindset, nothing can truly improve without change. We can't keep doing the same things and expecting different results. We can't keep making the same mistakes and hoping for a different outcome. Change is essential. If you want things to improve, if you want progress, if you want to move forward in a meaningful way, you have to change. Without that change, without that commitment to do things differently, everything will stay the same. The hardest part is accepting this. It's hard to admit that what you have right now isn't enough, that it isn't sustainable, that it can't continue unless something shifts. But here's the thing. When you choose change, when you choose to evolve, you're not just changing for the sake of the other person or for the situation. You're changing for yourself. You're investing in your own growth, your own future, and your own happiness. When you change, you make space for new opportunities, new relationships, and new experiences. You stop holding on to the past and open yourself to a future that's better than you ever imagined. The key is recognizing that change doesn't always mean the end. Sometimes it's the beginning of something even more beautiful. Yes, the road may be rocky at first. Yes, the process may be uncomfortable. And yes, you may face resistance. But don't let that stop you. Because the truth is, there's no coming back to the past without change. And there's no future without embracing transformation. It's the only way forward. So ask yourself, are you ready to make that change? Are you ready to let go of the old version of yourself, of the old version of the relationship, and step into something new, something better, something that can only be built with growth? If the answer is yes, then you're already on the path to transformation. If the answer is no, then ask yourself why. Why are you holding on to something that no longer serves you? Why are you staying in a cycle of hurt, frustration, and disappointment? The only way to truly move forward, the only way to heal, is to embrace change. There's no coming back without it. A man's realization doesn't come when you beg, when you plead, or when you try to explain everything. It comes when you stop. When you stop trying to get him to see your worth, when you stop chasing after his love, and when you finally understand that your time, your energy, and your heart are worth so much more than he's giving you credit for. It's at that very moment, when you pull back, that something shifts. He begins to feel it. The absence of your presence, the silence in your words, and the sudden distance between you. These are the things that force him to open his eyes and face the truth. But here's the truth about that realization. It's often too late. How many times have you found yourself giving, only for him to take and never give anything back? How many times have you tried to make him see what you've been offering, only to be ignored or taken for granted? You've been there for him, supporting him, loving him, hoping that eventually he would recognize your value. But the truth is, it doesn't work that way. He doesn't see it until it's gone, until he can no longer feel the warmth of your love, the comfort of your understanding, or the strength of your presence. And when that happens, that's when the regret begins to set in. A man's realization is not something that comes easily. It doesn't come when you're giving him every reason to care, every reason to appreciate you. It comes when you stop giving, when you stop being the one who bends over backward, when you stop being the one who always makes excuses for his behavior. It's in those moments of silence, when you remove yourself from the equation, that he starts to feel the weight of his actions. He begins to feel the absence of what he had, and that's when the realization hits. It's a painful truth, but it's the truth nonetheless. He won't understand your value until he no longer has access to it. He might not say it, he might not even admit it to himself, but deep down he knows. He knows that the love you were offering him was real, that the loyalty you were showing him was something he didn't deserve. And when you finally stop chasing him, that's when he begins to understand. But even then, the realization isn't always enough. Sometimes it's already too late to fix what's broken. The damage has been done, and no amount of regret can undo the hurt. When you stop trying, when you stop showing up for him, it's like a door that shuts in his face. He can't get back in. He can't take it for granted anymore. And in that moment, the realization of what he's lost hits him with the force of a freight train. He begins to understand what he took for granted, what he never fully appreciated. The silence you've left behind screams louder than any words could ever express. But by the time he understands it, by the time he realizes your worth, you've already made your peace. You've already moved on. And he's left standing there, feeling the full weight of his actions, wishing he could turn back time. But here's the thing about a man's realization. It's not just about him understanding what he's lost. It's also about him realizing how much he needs to change in order to get it back. Too often, men will come to the realization that they've lost something valuable, but they don't fully understand why or how to fix it. The change, the growth, has to come from within. And that's where the struggle lies. If he doesn't understand why he lost you in the first place, if he doesn't understand the mistakes he made, then that realization is hollow. It's just regret without any real action behind it. When he finally grasps the weight of the loss, it forces him to take a hard look at himself. It forces him to face the truth of who he was when you were around and who he was when you walked away. The painful part of this is that the realization doesn't always lead to change. Sometimes it leads to more regret, more wishing things had been different, but no real action to correct the mistakes. And when that happens, the opportunity to make things right slips away forever. But when a man truly understands the magnitude of what he's lost, when he truly realizes the treasure that walked away, it forces him to take a step back. He'll look at his life, his decisions, and wonder where he went wrong. And it's only through that reflection that he can begin to change, to become the man worthy of the love you offered him. But by then, it might be too late for him to win you back. Here's the thing you need to understand. Your value doesn't change based on whether or not he sees it. Your worth is not defined by his acknowledgement. A man's realization doesn't dictate your self-worth. It's up to you to recognize that you deserve more than just regret. You deserve someone who sees your worth, not just after they lose you, but from the very beginning. You deserve someone who doesn't need to be taught a lesson about love, someone who understands that what you offer is rare and valuable. A man's realization might come late, but your own realization should come sooner. You don't need to wait for him to understand your value. You should recognize it for yourself and walk away if necessary, because when you do, the silence you leave behind will be louder than any words he could ever say. And in the end, it's not about him realizing what he lost. It's about you realizing that you're worth everything, even if he doesn't understand it. There's something so powerful about silence, something so undeniable when you decide to stop giving and start living for yourself. It's not until the absence of your presence is felt that many men realize what they had, and sadly, it often comes only after they've lost it. Men don't always understand the depth of their actions, the weight of their words, or the value of what they have until it's no longer in front of them. They may take your love for granted, dismiss your kindness, and fail to notice the small things you do to keep things together. But the moment you pull away, the moment you let go, that's when the truth hits them, and they're forced to learn the lesson of loss. In the moment of loss, something shifts inside them. It's not just the physical absence of you that hurts. It's the emotional realization that the comfort, the companionship, the love, and the support they took for granted are no longer there. Suddenly, the silence becomes deafening, the emptiness overwhelming. You were there, giving your all, and now it's gone. And that's when they realize too late what they've lost. The reality is, men often learn best through loss. They don't always understand what they have until it's out of reach, until they can no longer count on it being available to them at the drop of a hat. They don't understand the effort it takes to be there for them, to constantly show up, to love unconditionally. But when you step back, when you stop giving, they are left to reflect on what was and what could have been. And in that reflection, the truth becomes unavoidable. They see your worth, not because you've pointed it out, but because you've removed yourself from the equation. Loss has a way of making us realize the importance of what we had, even if we didn't appreciate it at the time. For many men, it takes that distance, that void in their life, to truly see how much you brought to the table. It's the absence of your support that makes them realize how much they leaned on you, how much they depended on you, even if they never said it aloud. They didn't appreciate your unwavering support, your consistent love, your unyielding loyalty when it was right in front of them. But when it's gone, the emptiness is something they can't ignore. They may never admit it, but they will feel it. The regret, the loss, and the sadness. The realization that they didn't recognize your value until it was too late to do anything about it. And that's the harsh truth many men have to face. They won't always understand until the moment is past, until the chance to make things right is gone. But here's the catch. Just because they realize their mistakes doesn't mean they're ready to change. Sometimes it's just a fleeting moment of regret that fades with time, and you'll be left wondering if they truly understood what they lost, or if it's just another moment of misplaced guilt. The loss itself teaches them, but the lessons learned can either lead to growth or to lingering regret. And here's the thing, not every man will use that realization as an opportunity to become better. Some may feel regret but fail to do anything about it. Others might try to make amends but fall short of truly changing their ways. And then there are those who understand the mistake they made, who recognize the value of what they had, and who are ready to change. But the real question is, are you still willing to be a part of that process? When you stop chasing, when you stop begging for attention, when you stop making excuses for them, they have no choice but to face the reality of their own actions. It's in that space of silence, that space of absence, that they begin to understand the gravity of what they've lost. And whether they choose to do something about it or not is out of your hands. The lesson was never for them to fully grasp. It was for you to understand your worth, to realize that you are deserving of love, respect, and loyalty from someone who doesn't take you for granted. Men learn through loss, but the real learning comes when you show them that your love and your presence are not guaranteed. They may have
Welcome
had
back
all the
to the
time in the world to
NetMint
appreciate
channel.
you,
If you
but it
love
wasn't until you
luxury,
walked away
high-end
that they saw
lifestyles,
what was
and
right in front of them.
exclusive treasures,
It's the
you've
painful
come to
truth
the
that many
right
men need to
place.
experience.
Today we're
And while
diving
it's
into the
unfortunate
world
that it
of one
comes
of
at the
the
cost of a
greatest
relationship,
footballers of all
it's a
time,
truth that can't be
Cristiano
ignored.
Ronaldo. We'll be
Sometimes,
counting
the most
down the
powerful
10
thing you can
most
do is to
expensive
stop
things he
giving,
owns,
to
from
stop
rare
chasing, and to
supercars
allow
to
them to face the
luxurious
consequences of their
private
actions.
jets. Let's get
The
started.
absence of your presence forces them to reflect on their
First
choices
up, we
and
have
to
one of the
evaluate whether or not
rarest
they are
and
willing to
most
change.
expensive cars in the
But
world,
by the time they
Cristiano's
come to that
Bugatti.
conclusion,
Priced
the
at an
question becomes,
eye-bearing nine
is
million
it too
five
late?
hundred thousand
Can
dollars
they ever
this
truly
beast
regain what they've
boasts a
lost?
top speed
Or
of
is the lesson in their
380
realization only a reminder of
km/h.
their
One of
failure?
only 10 ever produced,
Loss is
it's
the
no
greatest
surprise
teacher,
that
and it's
Ronaldo,
often the
with
only
his
way to get
taste for
through to those who take
exclusivity,
things for
owns
granted.
this
They may regret their
one-of-a-kind
actions,
vehicle.
but that regret alone is not enough to undo the damage. It takes change, it takes growth, and most importantly, it takes a willingness to be better. And as for you, you need to understand that your worth is not tied to whether they realize it too late. You've already shown yourself what you're capable of, and it's time to stop waiting for them to catch up. If they're meant to learn from their loss, they will, but you don't need to wait around to find out.
Next no up, luxury let's talk about his Gulf Stream without a high quality